What we're here for today is to transition over and kind of how to use your SEO data and your organic data to apply it to Facebook ads. So it's probably a little bit different than what you buy, I don't know, maybe what you typically, because it's not heavy SEO, but I think there's still some value there for anyone who's doing SEO to be able to take some of that data and apply it to Facebook ads. But appreciate you guys having me. Thanks, Jim, for the invite. Always appreciative. But yeah, so anything else? You want me to go? Go ahead. All right. So I'll get started. I want to kind of, there's a lot of different things that we could talk about when it comes to Facebook ads and SEO. But primarily today, we're going to talk about how to pull some of the data to create Facebook audiences. Because as with Google and Google search, keywords are predominantly what you're looking at, right? Where with social media, you're looking more at primarily audiences. And so what the biggest thing that we do in our role is Dave was sharing about storytelling, is you definitely want to storytell, but you got to know who you're telling your story to. And so it's important to understand who your audience is. And there's always, on the brand and agency side, there's always been I say challenge, but the thing where people have their perceived audiences, and then people are their audiences when they look at the data. And so we're very data driven in what we do, and so that's what I'm going to show you today. And then I'm going to leave it kind of, just for the sake of time, cover some highlights, and obviously I can chat more about any in-depth things you want to talk about offline or after this, and also leave open to questions and answers, and then we'll have, I'm sure, pizza coming soon. So I'm sure you're wondering, who is this guy and why is he here? As I shared, we have an agency called 1026 Media. This is my dog, Milo. He comes to the office with us, and he actually, not to get too personal, but found out he had cancer, but he got it removed yesterday. And so I've been up late last night with him, and so I might slur my words a little bit, so just know that's probably why. I only got probably a few hours of sleep. But he's a corgi, he's 10, and like I said, I bring him to the office. Samantha has met him, she's actually in our WeWork. But anyways, as I shared earlier, I've been on the marketing side for 20 years. Aging myself, man, I gotta stop doing that. Primarily on the agency side, primarily on the paid media, but also, on the organic, so SEO, email marketing. I really have that they call it T-shaped background when it comes to digital advertising, digital marketing. And so even though we focus primarily on paid media, we also do supporting services such as email marketing, social media, CRO, SEO, and other things. So I've realized that about 2 years ago that we got to focus on something, and so that's why we do paid media. But again, I have that background of the full service, so that's why we're here in the SEO space. So that's a little bit about 1026. Started in 2012, work with a lot of different brands, e-commerce, local businesses. We have some local Denver companies, healthcare, travel, technology, higher education as well. But good blend of clients in our past. But I don't want this to be about me, it's more about what we're learning today. So it's going to be of how to create Facebook audiences using organic data. And so a lot of people I don't want to say they wonder why Facebook, but I think Facebook's one of those things where it's like, oh, I could just do it myself, right? Or like, it's so easy, I can just do a Facebook ad. Well, yeah, you could, but it's a lot more value when you can have somebody who understands what they're doing and has, as we talked, as you know, with the SEO world, you have an expert that can help you along the lines. And so some quick things about Facebook that I thought was interesting is that 69% of all adults are on Facebook. 74% of them use it every day. So there's users out there that are using it constantly. And then the biggest thing too, what I think is most important, is that 72% of B2C marketers reported that Facebook was their top social advertising channel. So as big as Google Ads is, as big as Facebook, obviously, and Instagram, and other Amazon as well, like people are still using, and they see the value of using Facebook ads as their primary paid social channel. So the 2 steps of creating your audiences in Facebook is, one, you got to find out who your customer personas are, right? Build your personas. So that's who they are, what's their demographic, what do they care about, what are they engaging with, really understand and understand your audience, and then develop personas out of that. Typically what we do is 3 to 5 personas for our clients. Those can be, for example, it's Susan, who's 35-year-old mother of 3. She likes to shop. She likes BMWs or whatever, and then she also likes Content Marketing Institute, or she likes Time Magazine, right? So finding different demographics with each person, whether it's female, male, age, and we'll get more into that. But it's that step one is really building that demographic and building that persona so you know exactly who you're targeting, and having a blend of them too. So depending on your industry, if you're e-commerce, so one of our clients is 48 Hour Monogram, they do monograms for colleges and for home decor, and they do it in 48 hours. And so they found with their demographic that they're 80% female, women driven, right? So if they start going messaging to males and fathers, they're not going to really see as much success as if they do it after, women or mothers or college students per se, right? So it's going back to understanding who your audience is. And so that's where building out these personas, and I can give you examples after this, it's a lot of data of what a persona looks like. Has anyone done persona work in the past? Everybody, I'm assuming? Yes? Yeah? Okay, cool. So you know what that's all about. Okay, cool. And then the second is once you build out your personas is then mirroring that and blending that with the targeting on Facebook. So the reason why Facebook is so popular for marketers is because of the targeting opportunities, right? To be able to say, hey, I can target X and Y and Z and be able to develop and design ads and tell that story to them when they're on the platform. So it's one thing to have the personas, and I'm not saying the personas have to be their favorite color is orange or things like that. It's like the personas are usually how do you build out the personas to where you can actually use them and they're valuable to Facebook audiences, which we'll get into in a second. And so the first way is looking at demographics. So for example, if you go into GA, again, going back to the perception versus reality, a lot of people say, oh, this is my ideal audience. This is who I want to target. But when you look at, and I'm using GA, but you can also use the Facebook pixel for this. And the Facebook pixel has so what I'm looking for has improved tremendously over the last just like 6 months and the last 3 months to where it's really now telling you more data around cross-platform, cross-device, and things like that. But I'm using GA data because as SEOs, I know a lot of you, that's what, everyone's familiar with GA, right? Google Analytics? Okay, yeah. And so the number one, from a simplistic terms, is understanding, okay, who is the audiences? So when you're talking demos, you want to look at age and gender, right, to start. What's the age demographics? Who's actually engaging with the website? Who's our visitors organically? Now, keep in mind, you can use this for any segment. So you can do it for email, you can do it for organic data, you can do it for social data, but obviously today we're talking the organic side. So you want to look at, okay, who's coming to your site, what's their age, what's their demographic, what's their gender. And so it's a quick slide of the GA data. So you look at, okay, hey, my audience that's coming to my site is 25 to 34. And primarily, if you look at this chart, primarily in 25 to 54. So you don't want to go out doing ads for 65 plus or 18 to 24-year-olds, or else you're going to be missing your demographic. Also, if you look for male versus female, you can see in this chart, they're more male dominant of the visitors that are coming to your site. And so you want to make sure you're targeting people on Facebook that are more males versus the females. That way, you're just likelihood of them engaging with you and buying your product or service or filling out a lead, depending on what your industry is. Geographics, again, these are kind of skin deep, and we can dive deeper into it. Just, I know we only have so much time for this chat, but so looking at where your target demographic, your geographically are. And so for this, we used a volunteer vacation travel company. And what they found is that for right or wrong, and I don't want to call anybody out per se or say anything negative for the middle of the country because we're technically in the middle. But what they found is that their data is they found the coastlines find to do better with their audiences, and so they find that people along the East Coast and the West Coast tend to buy those vacation travel, volunteer vacation travel. So you go on vacation to, say, Kenya or Thailand, and you spend the morning volunteering with the local tribes, and then you enjoy the rest of the time vacationing. Really cool concept. And what they found is that for whatever reason, the coastal areas have done better than the Midland, if you will, the middle of the country. And so by knowing that and knowing that's their demographic, they're able to maximize their ad spend to target those folks in those particular states. So we don't really target a lot of the Midland, and if we do, it's less, not less valuable, but it's less aggressive, if you will, from a bidding perspective. So we're putting a lot of the budget on California, Texas, Florida, and New York, and we use that based on the demographic data that comes through GA, again, in addition to Facebook Pixel, which is also another part of it. So looking at interest. So this is with Facebook ads, there's three main categories. There's demographics, which we talked about. There's interests, and then there's also behaviors. The problem with behaviors is it's different behaviors from Facebook than GA. Behavior on GA is obviously how much they're engaging with your site. So what I'm focusing on today, we'll get into behaviors in a second, but is what's their interest. And so there's the three different categories in GA, as you all know, is the affinity, the in-market, and then the other category. So with this, you're really able to say, okay, my users are interested in food and dining or cooking, or they're big into travel and their travel bus. Obviously for volunteer vacations, that makes sense. Or they're interested in arts and entertainment. You can dive deeper into each of these categories and pull out more data from there, as well as the in-market. So what are they interested in? Are they interested in home and garden, apparel and accessories? And then so you're really trying to just collect all the data you possibly can to build out that persona. Some people call it customer avatars. That's another saying for it. But you're really just at this step one, so this is a step one of the two, is you're just trying to collect as much data as possible to build out that persona to say, okay, here's my target demographic, here's my target customer from that perspective. So the other thing that is helpful is looking at audience insights. So this is going away from GA and looking at Facebook and pulling out what people are connected to. So looking at different things. So you see here interest. So you can type in, so using this, going back to this, you can type in lifestyles, travel as in these interests, and you can find like-minded interests that those people are in on Facebook. So this is not just living in GA, expanding it out further as you're building that persona out to look, okay, and you can do, what's cool about this is you can do everybody on Facebook, or you can just do people who engage with your Facebook page as well, which again, that's a whole nother, we don't have enough time for all that. That's another targeting option. But for this, you're really trying to find other similarities that your audience might be into to expand out the demographic, the buyer persona. So once you get into, so that's step one, right? Building out the persona, figuring out, okay, here's all the demographics, the interests, the behaviors, what are they into, what other like-minded things may be they into from a lifestyle perspective. And then what you want to do then is you're building out your audiences. So this is just a simple version of that where you can pull out, for example, you're a local company, right? So you don't want to target everyone under the sun, anyone outside of, say, Denver Metro. And so you can pull in the different locations based on your personas and say, okay, I only want people Denver 30-mile radius or zip codes or whatever that may be. You can also do it in bulk. So again, if you have somebody like a Discover Core where they're targeting multiple states, multiple zip codes, multiple areas, you can usually upload those in and then it makes the process a lot easier. But you're really able to pinpoint where your ads are being shown versus just trying to hit the masses. Then you have the age, which we talked about earlier, so using the GA data to pull in the age as well as the gender, and then languages as well. So again, this is just kind of like a quick high-level version of a high-level way of taking the persona and then applying it to the Facebook audiences, the targeting benefits of Facebook. So here's more of the detailed targeting. So here's where, and we pulled this from another client of ours, and you can see, so with Discover Core, the other thing that they found is that their target demographic is women, higher income, that live in those areas. So that's their persona. And so what they said is, okay, unfortunately, so caveat to this is Facebook is more and more making it harder for us to target people with the whole Cambridge Analytica and the privacy policies. And so you used to be able to say, hey, I want to find somebody who's making $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year. Now they've changed that to where it's now a percentage of household income. But so it still allows you to target the more affluent people that you want to go after, but it just makes it a little bit more difficult to do that. And so, but there's ways, so you can see here, if you take the demographics, financial income, so now we're targeting the folks that are higher income, folks that are parents, because we know that based on our demographic that we, or the audience personas, the buyer personas we created, that they are parents, they're probably married, and they have these following interests. And so that's how you take the buyer persona that you create and you apply those to the Facebook ads targeting machine. And again, it's the simplistic terms, but I can obviously dive deeper into if anyone's more interested in how to find these specific ones. And each of these you can do, so each layer is an and must, meaning that they have to make this money, plus they have to be parents, plus they have to be married, plus they have to be interested in shopping, beauty, cosmetics. Does that all make sense?
Yes, I have a question. When you say they have to be interested in something, does that mean that's something they liked or engaged with or posted about at some point in all recorded time?
Exactly, yep. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but we were actually talking about it before. So yeah, it's everything. So it takes a combination of what you fill out in your profile when you first signed up for Facebook, but also, like you said, what you like, what you comment on, what sites you visit off of Facebook. And there's just an article that they released that Zuckerberg, he released it a few months ago, but they're now starting to implement it in other countries to where people are going to start being able to clear their browsing history. Makes it a little bit more difficult for folks like me, but thankfully it's not in the States yet, meaning that they can go back and say, well, clear all that browser data that you've collected on me. So it's going to be harder to remarket to people. You can still target people, but it's going to be harder to remarket, which we'll get into in a second. But yeah, so it takes, and that's again the power of Facebook, is it's calculating all that data. I mean, I'm sure we've all been to a site where you're trying to buy something, and buying shoes or clothes or whatever, maybe buying a car, and you go off the site and you're browsing on Facebook, and oh, well, there's an ad right there. You're like, okay, we're all tech people, right? So we know how that, sure everyone in this room knows how that works. But some people are like, oh, like, that's kind of cool. Like, and if you're interested, if you make it a good ad, that's something that's relevant, they're going to engage with it. So it's not, and there's some people that's like, oh, it's intrusive, right? It's stepping on my privacy, which you're always going to get that percentage of people. But what we try to focus on is providing a high quality content that people are going to engage with. And if we know all these things about them, they're more likely to engage with them. It's not going to be as intrusive because it's something that they're interested in. So that's on the targeting side. So from a retargeting perspective, that's what I was sharing. You go to a site and you retarget them. One of the ways that you can do, there's a lot of different ways you can do, and it's called custom audiences on Facebook ads. And so one of the ways that we're talking about here is doing site visitors. And so you can visit, or you can pull out using a Facebook pixel the website traffic that goes to your site. So you can say, okay, anyone goes to my site and they go back to Facebook, serve them up with an ad that says XYZ, right? And that's good for a brand awareness campaign, because if you're just trying to get them back to your site or trying to just instill that, because studies show that it's 15 to 20 times somebody has to interact with your brand before they even take action. So before they fill out a form, before they buy a product. So it's multiple touch points. If we live in a world where we think someone's going to see our ad and go buy a product, that's a fallacy. That's the golden ticket, if you will, for any Willy Wonka fans out there. Right? But the reality is it takes multiple touch points through the process. And so that's why retargeting as well as remarketing, which we'll get in a second, that audience that's going to your site, organically, so you're driving the traffic organically. Now you're saying, okay, they may have not converted organically through my SEO efforts, but they at least got to my site, right? And so what you want to do is serve them up separate ad copy that relates to them, saying, hey, you've been to our site, but you didn't buy, or come visit us again. And that's what's great about the remarketing, is they've been to your site. So what a lot of can't say that, I shouldn't just say it. There's some agencies out there where they serve the same messaging for every audience. Where we really separate ourselves is we customize every message that goes out depending on the audience, right? Because you don't want to serve the same message to somebody who's been to your site once versus somebody who's been to your site 5 times, or someone who's actually bought a product before, right? It just makes you look bad, and it's just not going to get, and ultimately it's not going to get them to engage with you. And so the one way that you could do, as I share with you, the website traffic, is being able to pull all website visitors, which is nice, And it just gives another way for you to get in front of people that go to your site organically, that you're driving from an organic SEO perspective. But what we really like and we really see is pulling out specific page visitors, right? So if you're an e-commerce brand and you want to pitch, you want to promote, maybe you're having a sale on, if you're Nike and you want to promote orange Nike shoes, running shoes, right? You want to target people who have been to that specific product page, or if you're a service, so if you're B2B or if you're a service-based business, maybe you want to target somebody who's been to a specific page in the last 30 days. Now you can serve them up with messaging. You know that they've been to that specific page on your site, and now you can serve them up with an ad that is relevant, that gets them back to your site. Again, with different messaging, you also want to get them. So I've seen companies that they do remarketing or retargeting, and they send them right back to the same page that they were at. Like, no, it's not. So you want to build out separate landing pages for each of these campaigns, which again, there's lots of other stuff deeper in this, just with time, but I can share that more with you. So you want to have different landing pages for each of these levels, right? So you don't want to send them back to the same product page. For example, if you're e-commerce, you want to send them back to a page that has a discount code, right? Hey, you're back. Notice you didn't purchase. Here's a 20% off discount. Use this code. You can do that via email too, with shopping cart abandonment. But from a social perspective, that's how you would target them. So this is really great because, again, instead of just saying visit everyone who's visited my site, pick a specific page or a service that you offer, and then serve them up with the ads that way. Lastly is the remarketing aspect. So from when you're driving traffic organically, again, we're not going to capture what's 3 to 5% conversion rate is like good, right? And so you're thinking 97% of the people that have been to your site haven't engaged with you, right? Obviously, if you can get an email, that's great. And obviously, we want to have capture emails. And so that's why, number one, retargeting is great. But also from a remarketing perspective, you can get them to fill out an email. Then what you could do is upload those lists and remarket them. So what Facebook allows you to do is take your email lists, and so maybe it could be people who signed up for a newsletter. Maybe it's people who bought a product. Maybe it's people who bought a product, 4 products or 5 products. So we work with e-commerce primarily. We have all these different lists that we build out because we work with Shopify, which helps us track a lot of these lists where you say you can pick people who either visited a page, who bought a product, who fill out an email capture form, and then you can upload that list, and then it'll give you an audience in Facebook that you can target. Again, and you segment those lists out based on who they are. So it's just another way to get in front of the people who have engaged with your brand organically, who've come from SEO, and capture that either people who have engaged or even maybe the people who have engaged with you in email but didn't buy a product or didn't engage with your service. So there's a lot of different layers to that. But it's really great, and there's certain criteria that you have to meet. As you see here, certain identifiers that you have to have. Now, what Facebook does not want you to do is buy a list and upload it. Like that's what they that's what they shun upon. Right? That's what they don't like. What they want is, that's why they'll ask the origin of the upload, because they want it to be people who have opted in. Because that's nothing more annoying than getting emails or seeing ads for something you've never opted in. I get them 2 or 3 times a day, and I'm like, how does this person even get my name? It's like people on LinkedIn, right? You connect with somebody on LinkedIn, and then you get an email 5 minutes later, it's like, no, that's not what I agreed on or agreed upon. So they're really stinging on that. Now, you can obviously upload it and get away with it, but it's just bad business practice. We always like to do the right thing. So that's just a caveat to that. Is you want to make sure you have the list, it's yours, and people have opted in to receive that information or receive that. So the bonus, and one of the things that is really, really powerful with Facebook ads is lookalike audiences. Does anybody here know what lookalike audience is on Facebook? Yeah? Okay, yeah? No? All right, someone say no. So what lookalike is since Facebook has, they're a data center, right? That's what Facebook is. And they have all this data. And what they do is they will take your lists and your criteria, your buyer personas, your audiences, and they'll cross-reference it with other interests and behaviors that fit your audience. And so it allows you to expand out further, because as good as you are and as good as you can be from building personas, you're still probably missing out on a lot of different people, right? So you let Facebook's AI and machine learning say, okay, here's my buyer persona, here's my list. Now take my list and find other people that would be of interest that have same similarity. So they use, I think they said, 9 different data sets when they do that. So it could be age, demographics, interests, behaviors, all those different data sets. And you can expand it out to different locations. So the size generally depends on if you're doing US or Canada or the countries. And you can do this with any audience. You can do it with audience you create, so the targeted audience. You can do it with the custom audiences. You can do it with your email list. And we have found that much as I love sometimes AI isn't always, especially, well, I have a thing with Google Ads and their AI and their machine learning. But with Facebook, we have found tremendous success with our clients using lookalike audiences. It just allows you to get in front of people who you may not have thought would be interested, and just helps you do your job better. So we've seen tremendous value there from a engagement perspective, lower cost per click when it comes to things like that, from overall perspective, and just better overall cost per acquisition. So that's something that I definitely would recommend. If you're not doing already, look into that, no pun intended, but look into lookalike audiences, because it's a powerful tool. So I don't know how we are in time, but again, I'd love to, if there's anything that you want me to get deeper into, any questions on that, or any questions on anything else, I'm open.